Every good parent out there knows the value of punishment. You don't want to discipline your kids, but sometimes you just have to. They'll get upset and you feel bad about it, but you know it's the right thing to do because you have to set boundaries and create consequences to change behavior. It's better for them in the long run if they learn what they did was wrong. And it takes a pretty strong parent to really hammer home a message.
It occurs to me that since I paid the allowance that bought those records in the first place, that money's mine.
Well, it occurs to me that possession is 9/10 of the law.
Keep up with a smart mouth, and my foot'll be 9/10 of the way up your ass.
Punishment gives kids an incentive to avoid trouble. Don't like losing freedom and privileges? Well, don't put gum in your sister's hair. But not all moms and dads have the stomach to do what's necessary to keep their children in line. I'm sure you all out there know some parents who just let their kids run wild. And you might even be one of those parents. When you let your kids off without punishing them, they'll hurt themselves and they'll walk all over you and probably end up hurting others down the road. That's essentially what's happening in most of America's major cities. Local Democrat leaders have decided that criminals no longer deserve to be punished, and now crime's surging. But these aren't kids who skipped school or borrowed your car without asking, like I did. And that wasn't really the worst of it. Believe me, I was a menace. These are shooters, killers, and sexual deviants that are being put back on our streets. Democrats' soft-on-crime policies have actually created more criminal activity. Who would have thought? Like Luis Gabriel Ramos, who was arrested in November for murdering a 70-year-old woman and her 38-year-old daughter in the city of Yonkers, just north of here, New York City. According to authorities, Ramos committed the horrific killing less than a week after he was arrested for arson, but was released without bail. So because New York State refuses to keep violent criminals away from the general public, 2 innocent women are now dead. If Ramos was locked up for his arson crime, he wouldn't have been free to commit murder. And sadly, there are countless other tragic stories like this all across the country. In Chicago last month, Malik Petit was arrested for the shooting of a 17-year-old girl. Petit has a violent history, including another shooting at a gas station in March that left an 11-year-old dead. Was he properly punished for his crimes? Of course not. It's Chicago. Instead, Petit was released back on the streets following the March shooting with only a $7,500 bail. Chump change for a shooting that put a body in a coffin. But this set the stage for him to shoot another teenage girl like he did in December. And what about the case of Sean Laval Smith? Earlier this month, Smith was arrested for the brutal murder of a 24-year-old UCLA student, Brianna Kupfer. Smith has a lengthy rap sheet with records showing at least 11 different arrests across the country since 2010. But instead of putting Smith in prison for one of his many charges, including assaulting an officer in California or shooting up a car in South Carolina, he was put back on the street. And now Brianna Kupfer is dead. If we don't properly punish violent criminals, they'll continue to commit violent crimes. And the American people are rightly fed up with this crap. In a Fox News poll, 81% of voters said they were extremely or very concerned about rising crime rates, a significantly higher number than those concerned with COVID. But Democrats aren't getting that message. Instead, they're doubling down. One of America's most infamous prisons, San Quentin in California, is now closing its death row. Instead, they're turning it into a positive and healing environment, whatever that means. This is the same prison that once housed some of America's most vicious killers. Charles Manson, Ciaran, and Richard Ramirez all served hard time there after being sentenced for unspeakable atrocities. But now, murder an actress or kill a presidential candidate? No worries. You'll just squeeze in your therapy session before a nice sweat in the prison sauna. Because Gavin Newsom is dismantling the prison from the inside out. Newsom already froze executions 2 years ago, and now he's going to make life more comfortable for murderers. Why is it so hard for the left to actually hold true criminals accountable? Well, psychologically, many on the left can't process the concept of good and evil. They can't recognize sin. It takes on too much of a religious connotation, and they're very uncomfortable with the idea of judgment. Their entire political philosophy is based on tearing down history, law, and cultural norms. And so the prison system to them is just a relic of a barbarous, unenlightened, and medieval system that needs to be reimagined, by them, of course, and modernized in a more humane and progressive way. A way that doesn't work at all because incarceration works for a reason, just like walls work, and men and women are different. You know, basic truths that have stood the test of time. These aren't concepts to be embraced for the left. They need to be destroyed and then rebuilt to celebrate, you guessed it, themselves. They don't care that you and your family could be hurt in that process. The world revolves around liberals until they're a victim of a crime. They don't care. Democrats would rather have criminals just tell them about their feelings so they can work through their own savior complex. Meanwhile, I was the one who saved the world. They want to turn our prison system into something out of Norway, where jail cells look better than most New York City apartments.
Karsten was convicted of killing a man in Brazil. This is his cell block with a full kitchen, big screen TV, laundry room. They choose when to lock the door to their cozy single bed cells with a TV and a private bathroom. Inmates have a normal work week, giving them routine and responsibilities, training to be car mechanics and graphic designers in a state-of-the-art studio. Richard is studying music. He's doing time for murder.
Now, I'm no expert, but it doesn't seem like graphic design in a recording studio will rehab a serial killer. If anything, by turning our prisons into nice apartments with those kind of amenities, you're begging people to get locked up. It's better than where they live on the outside right now. You can tell the kind of parents these Democrat leaders are anyway. Just look at how some of their children behave. What did you expect? A sitcom dad would make a better leader than most of these pushover politicians. America needs someone who believes in tough love, but also has a big heart.